Being a Formula 1 driver is obviously many people's dream job, but that doesn't mean things always run smoothly. This is a short view back to the past to when F1 drivers went on strike.
Gentlemen, a short view back to the past.
One of the big news stories of the winter coming into 1982 was the return of 1975 and 1977 world champion Niki Lauda at McLaren. But almost immediately he made his presence felt when it came to the super license regulations. Lauda spotted a few things that he didn't like in the new contract, most notably that it seemed to tie the drivers to a particular team. Lauda was worried that this meant that the drivers would lose power and would effectively transfer like footballers, and he wanted more control than that. Now, Lauda contacted Didier Pironi, who was then the president of the Grand Prix Drivers Association, and the two of them took their concerns to Jean-Marie Balest, who was then in control of FISA or the FIA, and Formula 1 Constructors Association boss Bernie Ecclestone. Now, somewhat ironically, given what was about to play out between those two as they fought for control of the sport, they agreed and basically told the drivers where they could stick it. Not a good idea when you're dealing with Niki Lauda. Now, most drivers had actually already signed the document, but Lauda organised for a bus to collect the drivers as they arrived at Kyle Army for the opening round of the 1982 season. Now, some of them were a little bit reluctant to get on, but Pironi and Lauda managed to get them on and whisk them off to a hotel. The only one that didn't make it was Jochen Mass, who arrived too late and presumed was quite bewildered to see an empty driver's briefing room. Now, Pironi actually stayed on to negotiate with the organisers, but he returned with a story that was basically, if you don't come back now, you're banned for life, which again, not a great move, so the drivers barricaded themselves into one enormous suite. Now, that was actually Lauda's idea. He was concerned that if they all had separate rooms, some of the drivers, particularly the younger ones who were less confident of their position, would sneak off and head back to the circuit. So he brought mattresses in so that all the drivers could sleep in one enormous room. Quite an amazing thought if you think about it today. Now, for entertainment, Bruno Giacomelli drew cartoons. He was good at those apparently, and Elio Di Angelis and Gilles Villeneuve famously played on the piano. Alain Prost and Gilles Villeneuve also shared a bed apparently, moving one driver to suggest that if they had a love child, they would probably be the greatest racing driver of all time, which is a nice little aside there. Now, there was no toilet in the room, so they had to rely on one key going in and out, and of course that meant the drivers had to trust each other that they would actually come back. And Teo Fabi made himself unpopular by actually heading back to the circuit, but he was the only one that broke ranks at that stage, and the rest of the drivers stayed united. And that was despite certain people trying to get to the hotel and actually get them out of the room. Fortunately, it didn't get too physical, but the drivers held firm, stayed where they were, and the following day, Pironi came back with news. Now, the battle was won, and all the drivers could return for practice. Now, some team bosses took revenge. Bernie Ecclestone, for example, at Brabham, had all the cars livered up in Riccardo Patrese's number, and Piquet, his star driver, had to sit out the opening practice session, or the opening practice session on Friday, because obviously they'd missed the running already. Now, some team bosses, surprisingly, did support the drivers, and that even included hardman Enzo Ferrari. Now, during the race itself, the organisers put out a statement saying that the truce would end as the checkered flag fell and the drivers would all be suspended, which is rather harsh if you think they're out there strutting their stuff at one of the most challenging and fast racetracks in the world at the time. Now, it was all hot air, and actually the super licence clauses went away. Now, F1 was about to face some much more tumultuous problems between FISA and FOCA, and really there would be some unpleasant moments during the 1982 season. But on that weekend in South Africa, the drivers, and most notably Niki Lauda, had won the day. If you like this video, please remember to click that like button and subscribe. Do let us know in the comments if there are any other stories you'd like us to look back on in Short View Back to the Past, and be sure to go to Motorsport TV for other great motorsport videos.